My name is Julie Pearson. Little Thunder. Today is November 5th, 2013, and I'm interviewing Troy Jackson as part of the Oklahoma Native Artists Project, sponsored by the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at OSU. We're at Bacone University, where Troy is an adjunct art instructor working with director Tony Tiger to revitalize the program. Troy, you're an enrolled Cherokee artist. Since you started showing professionally in 2008, you've won as many as 2 awards at a time at over 27 shows, some in pottery, but many in full-figure ceramic sculpture, which is very powerful in its impact. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
Well, thank you.
Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and basically that's where I grew up. We've done a little bit of traveling through the United States, but mainly in Tahlequah. And it was a small district called Keys, which is about 10 miles south of Tahlequah.
What did your folks do for a living?
My dad was an auto body man. He repaired automobiles, wrecks, and my mother was a homemaker.
What about your grandparents on either side? What role did they play?
I had some very, very good grandparents. My grandparents, my granddad was a grader operator, and was retired most of the time. So I got to spend a lot of time with him while I was young, fishing and hunting, and we done a lot of things after he retired. So I grew up just in a really good time.
Now, was this on your dad's side or your mom's side?
It's on my dad's side. Mm-hmm. My mother's side, which my mother is Cherokee, and that her family, I was around a little bit, but not as much as I was my dad's family.
Were you around the language very much then? What was your exposure to Cherokee culture growing up?
Very little Cherokee culture. It wasn't until that I came here, actually in '75, to Bacone, working on my associate's degree, that I became interested in Native American work. I'd seen some of the Dick West paintings hanging in the hallways and in the popes, and I just fell in love with them. It's like really wow, really good.
Were there any other members of your family or extended family that were artistic?
My dad liked to draw and actually painted a few paintings, but not other than that, no.
So your first memory of seeing Native art, would that be here at Bacone or prior to this?
Oh, no, it would be prior. A lot of my interest actually came from museums, but it was just for the sake of, just liking the work. I admired all of it, Western, Native American, contemporary, and so it's just basically anything I see in museums, I just, what to do that.
What's your first memory of making art?
My first memory of making art. You remember the little number kits that you would get? You would paint by number sets. Yeah, that's my first. And of course, I would draw. I would draw. Would get magazines, and there would be clippings from art schools that you could draw these little images, and you would send it in. And of course, I would, and I'd have to tell them that I was 7 or 8 years old, and I'd get a reply. They would reply back and say, "Well, call us when you're 18." And so I'd keep trying, but nothing ever happened.
What experiences with art did you have in elementary school?
Almost none. I remember there were no art classes. As far as on a schedule. There was one man, his name was Leo Hamlet, that would come to our school once a month, and we would have an hour session, and that was about it.
Now, was your school in your district, or was it in Tahlequah?
It was at Keys.
It was at
District,
Keys,
that's
yeah.
south of Tahlequah. Mm-hmm. So that was basically, up to, and that was up to the 7th grade, and that was all the art that we got.
How about after that, middle school and high school? Did you have any exposure to art?
Mm-hmm. Now we had classes. I thought that was, one of the greatest things, because now I've got a class in at high school, Tahlequah High School, that I go to every day, and so that was a good time for me. It was.
So starting in 9th grade.
Started beginning. I began to learn a little bit about art too. It wasn't just how well I could draw, which basically that's all I did was draw, but. I started learning about some of the principles and elements and things of this sort.
Were you thinking of yourself sort of as an artist?
I thought of myself as an artist ever since I remember, as far back as, maybe 7 or 8 years old. I always knew that's what I wanted to do. I was fortunate. I tell everyone I was so fortunate as a young man because I knew what I wanted to do.
So you came to Bacone, and you came with the idea of majoring in art, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm. Art was not, where I grew up, art was really not favored as a young man going into that field. You would tell someone that you were going to school to be an artist, and they would say, "Oh, that's nice. Good luck with that." Something along these lines. So I had that in my mind, and here at Bacone they were offering a commercial art course, and so that's what I took. I said, well, surely I can make a living at. I might not be able to make a living painting paint by number sets, so maybe I can make a living at commercial art.
And with your father and your grandfather working in the trades, were they supportive of that move?
They were. My dad was very supportive, but the most supportive in my family was my mother. She'd make you get up and go, My dad would say, well, that'd be nice. Yeah, you need to go to school. You need to go to college. But my mother would say, no, you get up and you are going. And she was the main reason why I went to college.
So what kind of a foundation did you get at Bacone?
I think I drew an interest in art. Not only was I doing art, but I gained a different type of interest. Something that I realized that, hey, there's more to it. There's a lot more to it than what I think, and I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to find out more about art, instead of just maybe the aesthetics and the technical side of it. I wanted to know why artists were sitting, their work was sitting in these museums, and what they had to do to, in order to do that. So yeah, it created a different type of interest.
Did you have any fellow students or teachers who stood out at that time?
Here at Bacone, I remember some of the students that encouraged me, but mainly I was mostly encouraged by artists that were already professionals. They were already doing things, in and around Muskogee, in and around Tahlequah, like Enoch Haney. I was interested in his work. Chief Terry Saul, Dick West, all these guys, and that's what I was basically interested in their work.
And you also mentioned that it was sort of where you started having some intertribal exposure and some cultural learning was happening.
Some issues with, social issues of a mixed heritage, you know, Native American Cherokee is what I am, and European or white, which is my dad's side of the family was.
Then you went on to NSU, and you have your associate's degree in commercial art, I guess. Did you pursue the same major there?
No, I changed more or less into fine art. Again, it was maybe I was getting out of that stigmatism about artists. You know, that there's fine art. There's not just commercial and labor and this sort. And so I started painting more at that time also, and checking out the ceramics department. Of course, we did not have a ceramics department here at Bacone. And when I got to Northeastern, I took a ceramics course and just I fell in love with it. I mean, I was down there all the time.
Who was teaching at that time?
Jerry Choate was teaching ceramics at that time. Yeah, great teacher.
So, what kinds of subject matter were you exploring in ceramics?
We were just doing mainly pottery and just learning the wheel, learning how to throw pots and some decorating, but mostly just learning how to get started with it.
And not really doing any Southeastern, just doing some contemporary.
It's very contemporary. No, it was probably at this time with the ceramics, I probably was not even thinking about Native American symbolism or anything of that nature.
Had you sold any pieces?
At Northeastern, yes, I sold a few pieces. Not anything to make a living at, but I did sell a few pieces.
From some student shows, or?
We'd have student shows, and I would sell, one or two pieces here and there. I would like to, you think about when you sell things, how you would like to go back and just see what happened to them, and even see them again. And so sometimes I think about that because at this time I'm thinking they were like really, they were good. I don't know about that.
Well, this is a call for whoever reads the interview. You got a job teaching art pretty shortly after you got out of NSU, I guess, at Markoma Christian School. Is that
well, no, it was several
correct?
years.
It was several years later.
It was several years.
What did you do first when you got out of NSU?
My dad was an auto body man, and he taught me the trade. And so that's what, when I got out of NSU, I was like major lost. And so that's what I did. I did not keep focused is what happened. I did not keep focused. I got married, had a baby, and so then I had to go to work. So I had to put art on hold. I did.
So you didn't continue doing it. You were pretty much.
Well, I kind of looked at it as repairing and fixing and sculpting and all of that was, I was still doing some art. I remember making things out of what we call the Bondo, that is the plaster that fixes dents. And I remember making things out of that.
Little sculptures.
Yeah, sculptures. And it's strange because now today I'm using that material in some of my new things that I'm working on. So it's
We'll have to talk about that. So you worked in that field, auto body work, and eventually just continued working with your dad, or did you?
He and I opened a business, and I think we ran it together for 10 or 12 years, and then he retired, and I bought his part out, and I ran it for another 10 years. And I think all the way up to 2001 that I ran my own business.
When did you teach at Markoma Christian School and then Sequoia?
During this time, I think it was from 1999 to 2000, somewhere around there, about 2 years that I taught there. I taught all the way, well, I can't remember exactly how many classes. I only taught one class a day, but there were several different age groups that came in. I taught everyone together.
And how did that come about?
There was a friend of mine. I had not been doing any artwork in, oh my goodness, it's been several years. And a friend of mine was going to a church that I attended, and he just asked me. The art teacher they had gotten very sick, and they needed someone to fill in. And I said, well, yeah, I'll do that. So that's how I basically got started.
And this is at Markoma.
At Markoma.
And then how about Sequoia? How did that come about?
Sequoia came right after that. They had a talented, what they call a gifted and talented program after school. And I just went, I heard about it, and I went and applied for it, and I got it. So, and I taught there for, I think, 1 year. And that's when I started my master's program at the University of Arkansas. And my schedules didn't mesh. So I had to let that job go. And I hated to because it was such good money, it really was.
Was there something about the teaching that helped you decide to go on to graduate school?
I think so. I think it started to ignite a little passion, and next thing I know, I was calling the old instructor, Jerry Cho, and said, hey, you know if anybody has an old wheel that they would like to get rid of? And he goes, no, but he said, if I hear anybody, he said, I'll call you. And it wasn't a week. He called me, and he said, you need to get up here and buy this. He said, if you're going to do it, you better do it. So I did. I went up there, and this guy had a small wheel, and I bought it, and I'm throwing on it today. And that was in 2000, the year 2000. So I'm still throwing on it.
Why did you pick the program at University of Arkansas?
A friend of mine had went to the university, and he spoke very highly of it, and he was a working artist, so I knew it must be a good school, because he's got a job. He's got a job doing it, so I think that was one of the reasons.
Was it at the University of Arkansas that you kind of transitioned out of pottery into more 3D? Well, pottery's 3D, but into other forms, or were you still sort of focused on ceramic pottery?
One thing about pottery, there's this old idea of form above usefulness, or and I never could get out of that form. Even the pottery that I was doing, the functional pottery were almost sculptural, and people would say, well, I wouldn't buy that to eat out of it. And I said, well, why not? It's okay. And they said, no, now I could put it, and I had trouble with that, because everything that I did, I wanted to cut holes in it, or, extend it, or I wanted to do something that was not so quiet, and with functional stuff, that works better with quiet.
who were some of the other ceramic artists that you admired at the time, maybe native and non-native?
I had not been associated with any native artists at this time. Everything I was mainly I liked the Asian pottery, anything that had to do with that. And if you ever see any of my pottery, even my some of the Native the native pottery that I do, it'll have a Asian quality to it. And whether, and people just didn't like that. They just don't like that.
Well, can you expand a little bit more on what about the Asian tradition you liked and what you incorporated?
I think it was the unity that the Asian potters have. They weren't just. They all respected each other's pottery. Pottery, for instance, in China is very, very well respected. And I think I wanted that too. I wanted a culture that was surrounded by ceramics, that were surrounded by tradition. And that's when I actually became involved, started becoming involved with Native American art, is because I realized that I had that culture. I had something that was dated back centuries, and I could be a part of that, and I could link with, ancestors that that were doing the same thing that I was, hundreds, if not thousands, of years ago. So I think that's where the road turned.
Now, did you dip into Southeastern motifs and designs at that time a little bit?
While I was at the University of Arkansas, I just started to. I started to study just a little bit about Native American pottery, about the pit firing and things of this nature. But no, as far as my motifs and things, they're very much like that of the Asian pottery.
So what was your first competitive art show after grad school?
After grad school. I think at the Trail of Tears in Tahlequah, I think was my first. That would have been my first competition. Mm-hmm.
What did you submit?
I submitted two pieces of pottery. Let me see, I'm thinking, and yes, I did 2 pieces of pottery. And I'm trying to remember the year, but I'm not able to.
Did you already know that you were going to sort of focus on native art shows from that point on?
Yes, at that point on, yes, I knew. And I always, again, I go back to that, I always wondered how these painting or these pottery pieces were in museums and why they were on people's shelves and these things. And so I started wondering what I had to do. I started putting together pieces of, what I needed to do in order to be a part of that and to be respected in that area as somebody that was not just trying to necessarily win prizes, but someone that, I want to be known as somebody that actually cares about what I'm doing and I have a purpose, in doing these things, doing these pieces.
So even though there's other like native potters and they're sort of working with these southeastern forms and motifs, and they're sort of on a parallel track with you, but you're sort of focused on discovering for yourself sort of what that connection is.
Sure, discovering for myself and being an individual. I'm not a traditionalist in no way. I mean, I would never be like that because I think that I would have had to have grown up, in the culture to to be a traditional. So someone would have had to show me how to do it, and and how to do it well. So I'm very contemporary, yes, and I just.
When did you begin to really shift your format into this just more and more kind of sculptural focus?
Probably about 4 years ago. My pottery, again, it didn't seem to say anything as far as my native culture. It was cold. It wasn't warm. It had very little to do with my Cherokee culture. And I just never could get that traditional, I guess you could say, just that traditional feel of things. So I attempted a small sculpture, and from that point on, I knew that was where I was supposed to be.
Now, had you won some awards prior to that shift?
I had won a judge's choice, I believe, on one of the pottery pieces, the contemporary pottery pieces. But no, only when I put a sculpture on a vessel, I immediately won first place as soon as I put the sculpture on it. So I was like, oh, that's where I need to go, and so I did.
Well, one trademark of your ceramic sculpture is that you're not doing busts, you're kind of doing whole body sculpture, and while it has some stylization, it's quite representational too. What led you in that direction?
I've always been drawn to realism, and I think that if I'm, I don't know, maybe could you ask me the question again?
What led you into sort of that representational? There's an element of stylization, but there's a lot of realism.
Okay. Yes, and I think realism is very difficult to do. I think it is one of the most difficult aspects of art, and I like that. I like the difficulty. I like the I don't want to say this. I like the involvement of doing that. Something that is difficult to me, because once I reach that, it seems like I accomplished. I accomplished something, and I can go a little further, and into those elements.
You've talked about your art sort of reflecting a kind of working through of both of your backgrounds, Cherokee ancestry and European ancestry. I wondered if you could just expand upon that a little bit more.
The main thing about my Cherokee heritage is that there's some roots. There's roots there. We can trace them back. I can trace them back. My granddad was a full-blood Cherokee, so I knew that his mom and dad were full-bloods, and I knew that they came over on the Trail of Tears. I may not have to know them personally. I may know his mom and dad. I'm sorry, his grandparents. I may not know them personally, but I know something about where they came from and the way they lived. My dad's side, the European side, I have no idea. And it's really strange because, that's actually why I've done this piece right here. The title of it is I'm Part White, but I can't prove it. And that's what I can prove that I'm a Native American. I can't prove that I'm white, and I always thought that was kind of strange, and that's why I became interested in my Cherokee heritage, because I knew there was roots. I wasn't going anywhere with my dad's side of the family. I couldn't. They don't even know where they came from.
One of the challenges when you're starting out in art is the business side of it. And I'm wondering how you handled that.
I'm learning to handle that. I've done business, for years, and I don't mean to say that I hate it, but I don't particularly like it. And there's a lot of some of the business is fine. It's just like anything else. But there are areas of business in art that's really trying for me, and that's, for instance, marketing is very trying. We have the social media, very trying to me. I did not grow up with computers, and I'm having to learn all of this, and I'm very, I don't put anything about myself on a web page or anything like that. So yeah, there's parts of it. I would just like to have someone do it for me, and I would just stay in my studio and build with sculptures.
What does your wife play a role in the business?
She's an encourager. My wife's an encourager, but she has she helps me. She will help when we go to any markets or anything like that. She's always ready to go. She likes to go. But no, it's basically, I'm on my own. She has her thing that she does, and so I have mine.
How did you know how to price your work initially?
I don't, never did figure it out.
Still working on that.
Still working on it. There are so many different things that, are told to you about, and any artist, I'm sure that they could relate with this. You don't sell your work for nothing, but you don't sell it too high. And you're going, whoa, okay. I have to eat. Well, and I hear people tell me all the time, well, you sold that too cheap. And I'm going, well, I wish you would have sold it for me. No, so there's things like that. No, I never. It's still a work in progress. And you can cut any of this out too, right? If you want to.
You won Best of Classification at Santa Fe Indian Market in 2011. Was that your first year to do the market?
No. Let me see. 2010, I think, was my first year. I went out with the Art Center in Tahlequah.
The Cherokee Art Center.
Cherokee Art Center. And I went as a group, as a participant. There were 3 or 4 of us went out.
You had a booth at the Art Center.
And each one, well, we had 2 pieces that we could enter into the competition. So I entered one, and I forget who entered another one. But I won a first place, and so yeah, that was pretty big. I mean, to go to Santa Fe for the first time and do that.
Absolutely. What were your expectations about Indian Market?
To win something in the competition. I mean, that's. You're just taking one piece basically with you, and that's about all there is to do, is to enter into that competition. Because there is some prestigious benefits to winning a show like that.
Oh, definitely. And so did you have collectors in front of your booth early the next morning?
No, there was no one there.
Did you sell your piece?
I did not. There was no one there. They would come and look at it and and say, well, that's nice. But no, there was no collectors there. It was, I don't know what happened, because people said, well, you should have done really well, if you win first place, but no, I didn't.
Well, I think all these other awards have probably made up for that. You won Best of Show at the Cherokee Holiday Show, I think that same year. What did that mean to you? Or was it?
Now the year that this was this year. Now I did go to Santa Fe again this year. I was talking about the year 20. It would have been 2011.
Okay, yeah. Let's talk about 2013 then.
2012. 2012. I'm sorry, that was last year. This year I went to Santa Fe in 2013, and I won a Best of classification in pottery, which was a major win for me, because it was, there are 11, out of the whole show, there are 11 people out of, I don't know, probably 1,000 entries.
And it wasn't hot.
And it was pottery. Very contemporary. I never thought it was the most contemporary piece that I'd ever done, and I just really didn't think that, that it was what they, maybe what they like, and they just absolutely loved it for the pottery division.
What do you think made it stand out so much?
I was told that there has never been, it is so different that they had not seen anything like that. And
It was wheel thrown.
It was wheel thrown and hand built both, which that's one of the things that I like to do is addition. We call it addition, subtraction, and manipulation with clay, and I like to do all three. If I could find something else I can do, I'll do that too. If I can find another term to use.
Well, how about your win then at the Cherokee Holiday Show?
Cherokee Holiday Show. I tried for 7 years to place in that show, and I would seem like I would always place with first place or in pottery, but to win that was pretty cool, because I think this was like 7 or 8 years. I think that I tried to win the show, and I've finally done it. So I was really happy.
And it has some good prize money attached to it. How did that impact your art production?
Monetary gain is always good, at a win. I don't think that, and there's not enough money to do a lot of things with, but it gives you an encouragement to continue, and it does allow you to buy more material. It does allow you to pay your bills. So, and all those things are always in your head. You still have to make a living.
What's been more important to you so far in terms of your career, booth shows or galleries?
Booth shows at this point. I'm only showing at one gallery, at the Spider Gallery in Tahlequah right now. And, to be honest, most of it though has been for the competitions, and to get noticed. I think that has worked really well for me. I've recently been contacted by the Cowboy and Western Museum in Oklahoma City to be a part of their show this month, the 15th of this month, and so I thought that was a major, and that was because of some of the competitions that I won, and I won a competition 2 years ago, and the Museum of Art and Design actually put together a show and contacted me, and I got to be a part of that, which is a traveling show that goes around the United States for 3.5 years. So because of that win, that is what, that's why they call me. I guess they think, if you win a prize, you'll be good enough for the show.
So have you done a little bit of traveling out of state as well, or has it just been your work so far?
No, I travel with my work as much as I can. We did go to New York, Santa Fe. We go to anything. Sulphur, Oklahoma, I think, is the last one we went to, the Chickasaw.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I try to go. I try to go for the openings, and if it's not too far.
What was that the first time you'd been in New York? What was that experience like?
No, it was second. I've been to New York before, but this time it was a little different. I was a little more comfortable with it this time. Of course, it'd been roughly 7 or 8 years since I'd been there before, but I was a little more comfortable this time. It's a shock when you first go to New York. It's a shock.
So when were you hired here at Bacone?
Let me see, that would be 2011. I became acquainted with Tony, the director here, Tony Tiger, and we got to talking about maybe starting up a 3D program here at Bacone, and so I came aboard as an adjunct instructor, and so I've been here close. This, I think, is my third year here.
In what ways has teaching impacted your own artwork?
Oh, it opened up that teaching the fundamentals of art. It just opened all that back up, all of that, you know, that the things that you put out of your mind, you know, and it just brought it all back to witness, and so you get to, it's kind of like revitalize and say, "Whoa, yeah, I remember that. Let me put this in there," or something like that. But yeah, and you know, it's true. If you want to learn anything, go teach it, and you will learn it.
Well, how do you balance your artwork and your teaching?
I think I do a pretty good job of it as far as the balancing. I think I have to look at it as I'm still learning. And as teaching, I teach myself the same as I teach the students. And so, yeah, I think that the balancing is pretty easy. I don't have much trouble because I get to put to practice what I preach, and it keeps me on, you know, on guard, so to speak. Because if I tell my students, you know, that this works, I want to make sure I'm doing it myself.
What other museum shows have been important to you? You mentioned the New York show, which was the Changing Hands show, I guess.
You mean as far as my work, or
Mm-hmm.
just
as far as your work?
Probably this what is coming up now with the Cowboy and Western Museum. I think it's ironic in a way because I never contacted them, and I remember I was talking to my wife about Native American work, and I said, you know, but I have two cultures. I have one culture that came maybe more from the Industrial Revolution, or, you know, this sense. And I thought it was strange because I was telling her, I said, I'm really thinking about doing some Western type motifs and, you know, get into some Western scenes of, you know, figures. And lo and behold, they called me, and I was like, well, you know, maybe this is like that first sculpture, you know, that I did. Maybe that's a direction I need to go. So I'll see.
Have you done a Western subject for the show?
I think, don't mean to say it, let me see. The pieces that I have were Native American, but I think that they will hold true with some of the Western motifs, I think so.
That's what you're putting in the show, yeah. Yeah, because we were in the West, natives are in the West too.
Yes.
You've been pretty involved in various artist associations, the Cherokee Artist Association, which became the Southeastern Artist Association, and the Tahlequah Art Guild. Sometimes artists don't want to do that organizational thing. Why do you feel it's important?
Oh, it's important to surround yourself with what your interest is. If your profession is art, I'd love to surround myself with people to feed off of each other, to encourage, you know, to be encouraged and see what's going on, you know, with other artists. And it's the same with any field. The more you have together, the stronger you are. So that's one of the reasons that I started getting involved with the Cherokee Artists Association, because they could teach me something. You know, they could show me about Native American art, and especially the ones that had been doing it for years. I made sure that, you know, we were elbow to elbow, and so that, I think it worked out really well.
Let's talk a little bit about your process and techniques a little more specifically. So I imagine you use commercial clay, And you mentioned that you like to do a combination of wheel throwing and hand belt. I thought I read that you had to make or invent some new equipment to do some of your more ambitious sculpture. Can you talk about that a little?
Well, sometimes I have to raise my kiln. I have to add on to the kiln, and I have to make preparations for the firing and getting it to fire to a certain amount. Anything you do to a kiln, it changes the temperature that you need to get to. But yeah, I'm pretty good at making something out of nothing and making something else work. A particular tool or anything like that. I was always brought up that I never needed a lot of tools. I just needed to be able to use what I had, and so that's the way I do my art now. I mean, you come to my studio, you won't find a whole lot of tools. I just don't need them. It's impressive, but I don't need them.
Well, what about bond? You mentioned that you work with bond.
Bondo.
Bondo.
That's the old term for the material used to repair dents that were in, it's in metal. And so it works very much like any plaster. And so what I started doing was using that for backgrounds of some of the pieces that I'm doing, and then the clay is being attached to that, and I can get a lot of airbrushing with different paints, brighter color even, that can correspond with clay in contrast, because there's two very different materials.
So when you say airbrushing, are you talking about it's the patina that you're...
No, the airbrushing is what I do on the Bondo or
the Bondo, okay.
Just like you would paint a car.
Gotcha.
And you've seen a lot of some of the customized jobs that people do on automobiles. Well, I can do that also I can apply that to my artwork too. Text, it's just numerous things that I can do with it.
And there are some size restrictions or kind of challenges as people who work with ceramics now. Have you run into those with your sculptures?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Usually, if you stay within a 4-foot range, you're pretty safe. So my pieces will be, I'll start out at 4 feet. If that's the limitation, I'll start out at 4 feet because I know it's going to shrink. The clay is going to shrink once it's fired, and so it's going to be under 4 feet. But if I could, I'll be life size. And I hope that's what I'm shooting for. That is my goal now, is for life size figures.
Out of clay?
I'm not certain. Clay doesn't want to it's not very friendly. Once it gets very tall, it's just not very friendly. Or not to me. It wants to twist and break and crack and all this good stuff. So, no, I would have to, with some of the stuff that I want to do, I'm going to have to change materials.
So one of the things that you're known for is very elaborate kind of both bas-relief kind of and incising, lots of pattern and lots of design. Can you talk a little bit about how you got involved in that?
I think just going back to the principles of design, and I know that when I draw, I think it's because of my work. When I done auto body work, everything had to be so smooth. I mean, it had to be perfect. When the customer came to get the piece, it had to be perfect. It had to match. So I remember thinking about a lot of times how, man, this would look really nice if I could just. So that's what I do now. I don't have to do that. I can be as my images can just have texture. They can do whatever they want to. I can put, like on some of these pieces, I've got gears and cogs and stuff that I put on them, and so yeah, I don't have to do the norm. That's what I used to.
Now, I know you haven't been at these ceramic sculptures that long, but how have they changed in terms of subject matter and format?
I'm really, the older I get, the more concerned, the more family oriented I become. And I think that everything I do is because of all of my figures, or because of perhaps maybe not just a family member, or maybe someone that, a story about a family member or something like that. And I don't know, because I don't know, but I would have to say that that's maybe just because of my family, because that's what I know, I say that.
Now, has the coloring of your ceramic pieces, which I know depends on the firing process too, has that changed quite a bit?
Oh, well, it's changed from my pottery. I do not like glaze. I never could get comfortable with glazes. The oxides that I use, I'm very comfortable with them. I don't like sheen. I mean, a little bit of sheen is fine, but I just don't like that, especially not for sculptures. And I think that they have a more earthly sense to them. I think they have a more earthly quality of what clay was meant for it to be. And even the clay itself almost has a figurative color, with some of the buffs, for instance. So there's not a whole lot that you have to even do with the clay.
So you're talking about slips that have the oxides in them?
No, just pure oxides.
Just pure oxides,
Yeah,
okay.
I do not use any slips, just pure
Okay.
oxides.
Another thing that you have been doing lately is sort of combining materials, like you'll have the clay sculpture, but then you might have a piece of metal on it, and we'll be looking at those pieces at the end of the videotape. This one with the two balls.
Mm-hmm.
How did you first get that idea to sort of start bringing in some other materials?
The clay can be mixed with anything. I mean, as far as other materials, and be incorporated into clay. And I think that probably that piece there, that is when I started thinking about the Bondo and now these are clay, but I think at that point I was starting to think about, adding more material to them, different material. And for me, it just kind of evolved from there into the copper. There's a pretty few copper rings to hold the cross and things of this nature. But I don't know, it just seems like it just calls for maybe some mixed media.
Before you do a figure, do you sketch it out beforehand?
Sometimes, but not because of. I have a mental image as soon as I start the figure, it's already there. Sometimes I maybe just make a few sketches to see if it's going to work, or how much of a bend that I can put in that piece without it breaking, or how tall I can get it, or something, or size relationship. Probably for size relationship more than anything, how tall I want the base, for instance, and what I want the figure to stand on it or sit on it or something like that. But it's mainly I know what I want to do.
How about some of the designs that are like incised, or do you sketch those out beforehand? Or?
No. Now Now the text is that I put on these pieces are Cherokee, from the Cherokee silvery, and so now those I'll sketch out and put them on. But as far as the designs, I look through Native American designs, and these are actually part of them, but they're all abstracted to different, just a different motif. But it still kind of generates off the original, the old traditional symbols and things of this nature.
What kinds of research do you do for your?
Not as much as I should. I still go back and I learn a lot by talking to people. That's one of probably my best attributes of, getting my research is from going to a source of someone who really knows. A lot of the reading and things it's hard for me to understand. I'm not an archaeologist, I'm not a historian, I'm an artist, and so I try to, but I do my best work by talking to people.
What is your creative process from the time you sort of get an idea?
I just go to it. It seems like, again, it just seems like I know what I'm going to do, and I just need to get it out. One of the things that I feel that I do not create anything, and I've learned that a long time ago, that I just discover, and that's helped me more than anything to realize that I know that if I take this off, this happens. If I do this, this happens. And so I start a process of, with clay, I start a process of elimination, actually.
So it sounds like you don't really need to even jot down ideas, you just sort of carry them in your head till you go to work, or do you sometimes keep track of ideas in a notebook or something?
I think I keep track of ideas in my head when I see something. And maybe, some of these images has been from museums that I've visited. This piece right behind me, there was an artist by the name of William Lee, who is at the Fieldbrook, and not the Fieldbrook, I'm sorry, the Bartlesville Wool Rock Museum. And he had done a painting of an old Indian with a plow and some, of course at his time it was very contemporary, but the buffalo and stuff running in the clouds, and it left an impression on me. And a friend of mine here recently, I've been meeting with him, is a farmer, and he had an old plow sitting, out there. And I'm like, and immediately, I thought about that painting, and so I went and done it. It was just that fast. And I took all the measurements off of his plow. It was all, it was available to me, and I just did. I don't think there was one sketch. I don't think I did any sketches.
So what's your creative routine? Do you prefer to work in the morning or at night or whenever you have time?
I prefer to work, it's hard to say, sometimes morning, sometimes night. One of the things that a small business or a business has to do is he has to learn to be diligent, he has to learn discipline. And sometimes my discipline gets a little slow, so I might be out there in the evening if that happens, and if it's right on, I'm in the morning. But I'm mostly a morning person, I am. But there's just so many things I like to do too, Sometimes
And you have a commercial kiln that you haven't really tampered with too much in terms of the kiln.
It has a computer control. which makes it nice. Now I don't have to sit with it all the time, and I can set it to whatever temperature I want, and I'm pretty well safe with it. I make sure it shuts off. You always want to make sure it shuts off.
Right. Do you have your own sort of studio at home? Do you have a workspace at home?
I have a workspace at home, yes. I converted my garage into my workspace. So, and it works out good.
So looking back on your sort of brief professional career so far, what has been a kind of pivotal point, a kind of fork in the road for you in your art career?
I don't think I really see things as being forks. I think that, and I've actually given some thought to this. I think when I come to a decision, whichever decision I make, because I never know what that other decision would be. So I don't think that I really look at it as being a fork. I just go, and we'll see what happens. Sometimes maybe I think I should do that, but no, I enjoy doing art, and so any path I take, I think it's been pretty neat. Especially if things are working for me, that's why I look at that a lot. If whatever's working for me, it seems like it. That's the way I like to go.
What's been one of the highlights of your career so far?
Highlight. Gosh, I think everything that's happened to me has been a highlight. I never expected to win this many awards, and I really can't put one above the other, because they're just so. I'm honored. I'm honored to do that. I think probably if I was going to think of any highlight, that maybe it would be that my children, my family would see that, he's doing something, So I think that would probably be my highlight.
What's been one of the low points so far?
I hate to say this, but probably, I don't mean to say money, or in a sense that that's everything that I think about. But being an artist it's tough. It's not an easy road to handle, and some of the lessons are that you go through, just like any other business or any other profession. One of the biggest mistakes that I think that I made, and I caution students that I talk to, is to think that everything is just going to work out. That somebody's going to see my work, they're going to just come down here and they're going to pick it up, and I've got it made. I don't even have to work for it. I think that is, I think that's a big mistake. You have to work for it. And so getting over some of the, some of the issues that you thought were right, and you find out that they were not right.
And even though, you don't enjoy the new media very much, your web page is very nice. I think it's just very well done.
Well, thank you. I don't know sometimes, about, like I say, me and computers, we're learning. I'm learning. But.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add, or that we forgot to mention before we look at your artwork?
No, I think it's pretty well. I mean, unless you have some more questions, I have nothing more to add.
Okay, well, we'll take a look at your work here.
Okay.
How about this piece? Would you like to tell us about this?
Yes, this piece here is a perfect example of my work. dealing with social issues of mixed cultures. There's two spears which represent are symbolic of Native American and European culture, the red being Cherokee and the white being European. The piece is titled, "I'm Part White, but I Can't Prove It." And I actually received this from this title from a friend of mine who is a full-blood Cherokee. And we were having breakfast one morning, and someone asked him how much Indian he was. And we don't think about that as being an issue, but for some reason it is. Some people, they want to know. And I don't know why he said it. He just said, "Well, I'm part white, but I can't prove it." And I thought that was so, I thought that was such an interesting statement. So that's why I titled this piece.
And I love the way the incising here, it almost looks like tattooing almost. It's just a really nice.
Well, they've done a lot of tattooing.
Look. Yep.
And so I wanted to incorporate some symbolism, or actually not any definite symbolism, but just some abstract line work to show that our ancestors did do some tattooing and marking of their bodies.
Right. And how about this piece?
This piece, I've been interested in the Industrial Revolution and the effect, what effects it's had on Native Americans. I had a friend once tell me that where would the Indian have been if the Europeans hadn't have come over? And I don't like to get into a lot of detail about things of that nature, but it left an impression on me, and so I started thinking about how the Industrial Revolution affected us, and not just Native American, but how it affected my side of the European side of the family. And the plow, my goodness, was one of the biggest turn points. And when I done this piece, I kept thinking about how we as people progress and how the industry has helped us to progress. And so I titled this "Waiting on the Tractor," because we're always seeking how to make things easier for ourselves.
And I sort of interpreted it as it's sort of broken. Some piece is broken from this.
It could be. There may be a thing of the past. There is some symbolism, some narrative to a story. The young man is checking his pocket watch. And if you could see the time, it would be at 5 o'clock, because that's when the farmers are already out there getting, and they're past time. They should have been there before. He's trying to wave them down. He's trying to figure out why they're not there.
Oh, okay, that's a pocket watch. Okay, that's neat. And how about this piece?
Well, people today, I believe that people today go through the same things that people did centuries ago. Different, of course there's different things, but basically we go through the same things. And I always thought about how there's in Tahlequah, there is a male and female seminary that was, which became a higher learning facility for Native Americans. And I wondered how they would be chosen to get to go to these schools. And so I think about today how I felt, for instance, when I got a letter of acceptance into Bacone or the college, and how we're all, and by the way, that is the title of this letter of acceptance, and how we all, different organizations, different areas of our life, how we wait for letters of acceptance. And the base of this, I think that, represents, there are 7 clans to the Cherokee people, and so there's 7 images at the figures at the bottom, which that's what that represents. And then it has the Cherokee syllabary of the acceptance letter, is what it says.
That's a really beautiful piece and such a neat expression.
I was always fascinated with Bernini and his sculptures and the way that he would he would put life into them and how they would extend out and come into the viewer's space. The early Baroque, they were just so aggressive and come out, and so I like to think that mine, just have just a little bit of glimpse.
Come a little bit into the viewer space.
I think I was a genius.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Troy.
Well, thank you for having me.